I am back and ready to make my dress for February. This year I am making a normal dress once a month, so I actually have dresses that I've made to wear to events because I don't have any. The 3 rules are it has to be comfortable, something I will actually wear, and mostly from my own stash. Later this month I am going to my grandmother's 90th birthday party, so I'm going to make a casual party dress from fabric that a neighbor and watcher of my channel gave me. Some light blue lining, there was a little bit of staining on it, but I think I got most of it out. And this flowery organza. And unlike January, I actually have a plan this time. Let's get started. The plan is to have sort of a peasant dress style, and oh, it's not over here anymore. Hold on. Here it is. I made this for spring a few years ago. A lot of it is what I want to do now, but the sleeves are just a bit too puffy for me to want to wear it normally. And also, since it is February, the sleeves have to be a bit longer. This is the original. I'm gonna tone down the sleeves by like 4 inches, I think. Also, this dress has pockets. So I want to do, it's gonna end up being 2 separate dresses. Can you not do that right now? He couldn't do it later, so this is the plan. The underdress will be a plain tank-style dress with pockets, and the organza top dress will have elastic at the collar, waist, and lower arms, and not be too puffy, I hope. I made a flattering mock-up, and then cut into the good fabric. A lot of people thought I'd be making a red dress for Valentine's Day, but red is just not a flattering color for my skin tone. Hey! You are lucky those are not my sewing scissors. I marked 4 elastic lines 1.5 inches apart with my disappearing ink marker. My current sewing machine does not like elastic shirring, so I cut 1/4 inch elastic to 12.5 inches. I knew stitching the elastic was going to be tedious, and I thought it would be easier while it was still flat. So I sewed the elastic on the front before stitching on the back. Hey Sky, are you gonna take over and sew now? He has a history of chewing on fabric. We're not gonna chew on that, right buddy? Emmy's a pro at this, right Emmy girl? She knows not to chew on fabric. I did the same thing to the back panel, including getting help from my youngest assistant. He's not as helpful as one would think an assistant should be, but maybe we'll get there. He spent the last week in the sewing room out of the crate because he's been such a good boy. Time for the sleeves! I cut the pattern out with no problems at all. No! Sky! That was my good one. Ugh. Back in the crate. He was doing so well out of the crate, but he is still a puppy. I marked the elastic lines down to the cuff, and I pulled the elastic taut while stitching it down. There are a lot more elastics on this than the waist. I grabbed my bodice and sleeve pieces and pinned them together here, and definitely checked my front and back labels. Ugh. And this time, I lined up my helpful labels and pinned and stitched the front to the sleeve, to the back, to the sleeve, and back to the front. I also serged these seams before they could fray much. And now I'm giving the side and underarm seams the same treatment. And with this step, it finally starts to resemble a dress. Except at the neckline. Let's fix that. I folded the edge over twice and pinned. I did keep the seam allowance toward the sleeves, but since this is sheer, I wanted it to look pretty. That may backfire when inserting the elastic. I stitched a channel wide enough for the elastic around the whole neckline. And unpicked some of that so I could add a tag since I couldn't tell the front from the back. The next day, Emmy and I went to Joann's and bought a new seam ripper. But don't worry, Sky was tired from doing this. I used a safety pin to feed elastic through the channel. Trying it on to test the neckline before I stitch this down, and it's perfect. Great first try. However, the sleeves are way too tight, so I'm gonna have to redo them a bit. But the rest of the dress looks great. And you can see why I need a lining under this. I only had it on for like a minute. I sewed the ends together and finished closing the channel. I didn't have enough fabric left to redo the whole sleeve, so I got about redoing the lower sleeve with looser elastic. Normally I would just leave it, but rule number 1 was it has to be comfortable. I cut off the old sleeve and added the new one, and we are back in business. The last thing to do was hem all of it. I used to think the rolled hem was the worst, but after hemming literal miles of hem in my Cinderella petticoat, I learned to appreciate it. And then we went on the early Valentine's Day train ride. And from the last little bit of scrap, I cut a matching scrunchie! We've also been enjoying the frozen lake as much as possible because it didn't freeze the last 2 winters. I was very sad. Look at my hibiscus! Yes, it is still winter. I popped to Joann's to use my gift card before any possible liquidation and got some patterns. I think this one's gonna turn into my March dress because I need one black tie / formal dress for my monthly project. Time for the underdress. I modified the slip pattern from a Mary Poppins dress and cut it from the polyester lining material. It's a simple princess seam 3-piece bodice with darts on the back. It was based off a commercial pattern, but I don't remember which one, so you'll have to go watch that video if you want to know. I stitched the back darts and stitched the whole bodice together, and I did iron it with a tailor's ham and everything, but off camera. For the skirt, I cut a 23-inch long by 1/2 the fabric width wide rectangle and turned it into an A-line and quickly noticed a problem. There's not enough room to move, so I'm gonna redo this. So I redid all of the bodice again, but I didn't film it. Cotton feels way nicer than the polyester lining anyways. This time for the skirt, I went with a pleated rectangle shape. I prefer how a circle skirt twirls, but this is only the lining. I went with 1 length of front panel and 2 half lengths of back panel. That was easy. Then I have to improvise in the pocket. This is not big enough. We're just gonna have a fun pocket lining. I folded the piece into quarters and freehanded a phone-sized pocket shape. After enough trial and error, you get pretty good at this. For an inseam pocket, you sew a pocket panel to all 4 side seams of the skirt. I also understitched the seam allowance. And then you put the side seams together and sew around the pocket and down to the hem. I put the bodice and skirt together, matching the center, sides, and the back, and pleated in between. I stitched all of these down with the pockets facing towards the front. I then confidently installed the invisible zipper on the wrong side. After some seam ripping, I confidently re-stitched it to the right side. He would like to be let out of his prison so he can chew on whatever he deems chewable. I think not, sir. I ironed the neck and arm edges over and top stitched them down. And then I ironed and top stitched a 1-inch hem on the skirt. And then I redid all the pleating off camera because I'm a bit of a perfectionist. That predictable thing happened while traveling, so I won't torture you with my sick voice for very long, but I am very happy with this dress. I just wish the sleeves were an inch longer, but it's very comfortable. Come back to see what I make in March.